The last train to Seattle curved through the Olympic Mountains like a silver snake, its headlights piercing the gathering twilight. Inside car number 12, wedged between overstuffed suitcases and dozing passengers, 19-year-old Olivia Chen pressed her back against the cold window. One hand clutched her college acceptance letter, the other gripping a phone with 17 missed calls from her father. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The train lurched violently as it rounded a sharp bend, throwing Olivia against a sleeping businessman who startled awake with an irritated grunt. Through the rain-streaked window, pine trees rushed past like shadowy sentinels, indifferent to the storm raging both outside and within her chest. She had been traveling for almost 2 days, surviving on vending machine snacks and tap water from station bathrooms. But the cramping in her stomach told her something was wrong. Something was changing. 3 months ago, Olivia had been her father's perfect daughter, straight A student, classical pianist, early acceptance to Juilliard. Then came the recital where she froze on stage, her fingers suddenly foreign against the ivory keys. Her father's disappointment had been like a physical weight, crushing her beneath expectations she could no longer bear. When the acceptance letter from Seattle Pacific's environmental science program arrived instead, her secret application, her true passion, she knew what would happen. "Music is your gift," her father had thundered, waving away her dreams like inconvenient smoke. 20 years I've invested in your talent. 20 years of sacrifices, lessons, competitions. And you want to throw it all away to study plants? The letter had been torn to shreds before her eyes, her passport locked in his safe. The message was clear. She would attend Juilliard or nothing at all. The train announcement crackled overhead. Next stop, Cascade Falls, 5 minutes. Olivia hadn't planned on getting off here. Her ticket was for Seattle, still 3 hours away, but the persistent pain in her abdomen made the decision for her. She needed help, and she needed it now. Gathering her backpack and the small duffel, containing everything she'd managed to grab before slipping out in the night, Olivia made her way to the exit doors. The businessman she'd bumped into earlier watched her with narrowed eyes, taking in her disheveled appearance and the obvious distress on her face. "Are you okay, miss?" he asked, his earlier irritation softening to concern. "Fine," Olivia lied, avoiding his gaze. "Just my stop." The train slowed with a screech of metal on metal, and Olivia braced herself against the door. Through the glass, she could see the small platform of Cascade Falls Station, dimly lit and nearly deserted in the evening downpour. A lone figure stood beneath the shelter, collar turned up against the rain. Freedom, if she could reach it. When the doors hissed open, Olivia stumbled onto the platform, the cold air hitting her lungs like a physical blow. The pain intensified, doubling her over, and her duffel slipped from nerveless fingers to land with a wet thud on the concrete. Behind her, the businessman called something, but his words were swallowed by the train's departure whistle and the pounding rain. Alone on the platform, Olivia fought to catch her breath. The station building loomed ahead, its windows glowing warm yellow in the gathering darkness. She needed to reach it, to find help, but her legs trembled beneath her like saplings in a strong wind. "Hey!" a voice called through the rain. "Are you all right?" The figure she'd glimpsed from the train approached cautiously. A woman in her 40s, dark hair streaked with silver pulled back in a practical braid. She wore the uniform of a station manager, and her expression shifted from polite inquiry to alarm as she took in Olivia's condition. "I'm fine," Olivia gasped, the lie even less convincing now. "Just need to sit down for a minute." The woman's eyes, a warm brown that reminded Olivia painfully of her late mother's, narrowed with concern. "Let's get you inside before you catch your death out here." Strong hands guided Olivia toward the station building, pausing to retrieve her fallen duffel. The woman supported her weight with surprising strength, and Olivia found herself leaning into the help, too exhausted to maintain the independence that had carried her this far. The station's interior was modest but meticulously maintained. A small waiting area with wooden benches, a ticket counter, and a pot-bellied stove radiating blessed heat. The walls were lined with vintage railway posters and photographs of mountain landscapes. A desk in the corner held a computer terminal and stacks of paperwork. "Sit," the woman instructed, leading Olivia to the bench nearest the stove. "I'm Eva Torres, station manager here in Cascade Falls, and you look like you could use some help." Olivia sank onto the bench, her body betraying her with visible shivering despite the warmth. "Olivia Chen," she managed. "I was heading to Seattle, but I felt sick, and I thought maybe if I got off here." Ava's frown deepened as she took in Olivia's pale face and trembling hands. "When did you last eat something, or sleep properly?" The question was so practical, so free of judgment, that Olivia felt tears threatening. "Yesterday, maybe? I don't remember." Ava disappeared into a back room, returning moments later with a thermos of tea and a sandwich wrapped in wax paper. "My dinner," she explained, pressing both into Olivia's hands. "Nothing fancy, but it's hot and it's food." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Olivia wanted to refuse, to insist she wasn't a charity case, but the aroma of the food demolished her resistance. She ate ravenously while Eva busied herself with station closing procedures, checking schedules and locking drawers with efficient movements that spoke of years of routine. "The last train's gone for the night," Eva said, glancing at the wall. "Clock. Next one through is the 6:15 morning express. Were you planning to stay somewhere in town?" The question hit Olivia like a bucket of ice water. She had no plan beyond getting to Seattle, no money for hotels, and no contacts in this tiny mountain town. I'll figure something out," she said, her voice small even to her own ears. Ava studied her for a long moment, taking in her worn sneakers, the college sweatshirt that had seen better days, and the desperate determination in her eyes. "Run away?" she asked finally, her tone neutral. Olivia bristled. "I'm 19. Legally an adult. I can go where I want." "Didn't say you couldn't," Eva replied mildly. "Just trying to understand the situation." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the patter of rain against the windows and the occasional rumble of thunder. Olivia felt the woman's steady gaze like a weight, assessing without judging. It reminded her of her piano teacher, the only adult who had ever really seen her beyond her talent. "My father wants me to be something I'm not," Olivia said finally, the words escaping before she could reconsider. "He's planned my whole life around music, around Juilliard and concert halls and fame. But I want to study environmental science. I want to work outdoors, protect wilderness areas, make a difference in ways that matter to me." Eva nodded, unsurprised. "And he didn't take that well. He destroyed my acceptance letter. Said wouldn't pay for anything but Juilliard." Olivia's laugh was bitter. 20 years of being the perfect daughter, and it meant nothing the moment I wanted something different, so you ran. "I chose myself," Olivia corrected, surprised by the conviction in her voice. Maybe for the first time ever, Ava's expression softened. "That takes courage. But running away without a plan is just exchanging one problem for another." Another cramp seized Olivia, sharp enough to make her gasp. Ava was beside her instantly, concern replacing contemplation. "How long have you been having pain?" she asked, professional and calm. "Since this morning," Olivia admitted. "I thought it was just stress or maybe something I ate." Ava's hand touched her forehead gently. "You're burning up. This isn't stress, Olivia. You need a doctor." Panic flared in Olivia's chest. No doctors, no hospitals. They'll call my father." "Not at 19, they won't," Ava said firmly. Medical privacy laws protect you. But this isn't optional. You're sick and you need help. Before Olivia could argue further, the station door burst open with a violence that startled both women. 3 men entered, bringing the storm's fury with them. Expensive suits darkened with rain, faces hard with purpose. "There you are," the leader said, his relief quickly replaced by anger. "Do you have any idea what you've put your father through, Olivia? 2 days of panic, police reports, private investigators. He's beside himself." Olivia shrank back against the bench, recognition and fear flooding her system. "Uncle Philip," she whispered. Philip Chen, her father's younger brother and business partner, stepped further into the station, flanked by 2 men Olivia recognized as security from her father's company. "Your father hired us to find you," he said, voice softening slightly. "He's worried sick, Olivia." "He's worried about his investment," Olivia corrected bitterly. "His prodigy, his ticket to vicarious fame." Philip sighed, impatience edging his concern. "This rebellion isn't like you, Olivia. You've always been such a sensible girl. Whatever point you're trying to make, you've made it. Now it's time to come home." Ava stepped between them, her small frame somehow filling the space with authority. "Excuse me, but who exactly are you gentlemen?" Philip straightened, adjusting his tie in a gesture so like her father that Olivia felt physically ill. "Philip Chen, the young lady's uncle." "And you are?" "Eva Torres, station manager. And I'm concerned about how you found Miss Chen so quickly when she just got off a train she wasn't scheduled to disembark from." A flicker of discomfort crossed Philip's face. "We have resources. The important thing is that we found her and can take her home safely." "I'm not going back," Olivia said, standing despite the pain and dizziness. "I'm an adult. You can't force me." "Your father has frozen your accounts," Philip said quietly. "Your phone is tracked through his family plan. You have no money, no resources, and apparently," he glanced pointedly at her obvious distress, "you're unwell. Be reasonable, Olivia." Ava's posture shifted subtly, placing herself more firmly between Olivia and the men. "Ms. Chun doesn't seem eager to leave with you, Mr. Chun. And as she correctly points out, she's an adult who can make her own decisions." Philip's professional veneer cracked slightly. "This is a family matter. With all due respect, Ms. Torres, you have no standing here." "In my station I have considerable standing," Eva replied coolly. "And I don't appreciate 3 men intimidating a young woman who's clearly unwell." One of the security men, Davis, Olivia remembered distantly, stepped forward. "Look, we don't want trouble. Mr. Chun Sr. is prepared to be understanding. But this needs to end now. The scholarship to Juilliard is non-transferable, and the deadline for acceptance is tomorrow." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Her father's urgency wasn't just about control, it was about money. The prestigious scholarship would be forfeited if she didn't confirm her attendance by tomorrow's deadline. "I don't want it," Olivia said, her voice stronger now despite the fever making her skin prickle with sweat. "I never wanted it. I only applied because he insisted." Philip's expression hardened. "Your father has sacrificed everything for your career. Mortgaged his business, delayed his retirement, spent every spare dollar on your training. You owe him this." "I don't owe him my life," Olivia countered, even as another wave of pain made her vision blur at the edges. "I don't owe anyone that." The confrontation might have escalated further, but at that moment, Olivia's knees buckled. The fever that had been building all day spiked sharply, and she collapsed against Ava, who caught her with surprising strength. "She needs a hospital," Ava said sharply. "Now." Philip hesitated, clearly torn between his mission to retrieve his niece and the obvious medical emergency unfolding before him. "My car's out back," Eva continued, already helping Olivia toward a rear door. "You can follow us to Cascade General if you're so concerned about her welfare." But she's going to a doctor right now, with or without your approval. The world began to fade around the edges as Olivia felt herself being guided through the rain. Toward a parked SUV. The last thing she remembered clearly was Ava's voice, firm and reassuring. "Hold on, Olivia. You're not alone in this. Just hold on." The fever dreams came in waves. Her mother's funeral when she was 8. Her first recital at Carnegie Hall at 12. Her father's face contorted with rage as he tore her acceptance letter into confetti. Through it all, a steady presence remained. A cool hand on her forehead. A calm voice anchoring her to reality when the fever threatened to sweep her away entirely. When Olivia finally surfaced to full consciousness, the first thing she registered was the antiseptic smell of hospital surroundings. The second was Eva Torres, asleep in a visitor's chair pulled close to her bed. Her station manager's jacket draped over her like a makeshift blanket. "She hasn't left since they brought you in," said a quiet voice from the doorway. Olivia turned to see a doctor, mid-50s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, consulting a chart. "How long have I been here?" she asked, her throat raw from disuse. "Almost 2 days," the doctor replied, approaching to check her vital signs. "You had acute appendicitis, complicated by the fact that you'd been ignoring the symptoms while traveling. We had to perform emergency surgery." The news hit Olivia with stunning force. 2 days lost to illness. 2 days closer to deadlines and decisions she wasn't prepared to face. "Your appendix ruptured just as we got you into surgery," the doctor continued. "Another few hours, and we might be having a very different conversation. You're lucky Ms. Torres recognized the severity of your condition." Eva stirred at the sound of voices, blinking awake with the instant alertness of someone accustomed to responsibility. When she saw Olivia conscious, her face transformed with relief. "Welcome back," she said simply. "You had us worried." "Us?" Olivia questioned, dreading the answer. Eva exchanged a glance with the doctor. "Your uncle stayed the first night, but he had to return to Seattle for business. He left his contact information and asked to be notified when you woke up." Relief and apprehension warred in Olivia's chest. They hadn't taken her back while she was unconscious, but Philip's departure didn't mean he'd given up. It more likely meant he was regrouping, consulting with her father, planning their next move. "The important thing now is your recovery," the doctor said, making notes in her chart. "The surgery went well, but you'll need time to heal. No travel. For at least a week, preferably 2. 2 weeks. The Juilliard deadline would pass, the Seattle Pacific semester would start, and Olivia would be stranded in a town she'd never intended to visit, with no money and no plan. "I can't afford to." "Stay here," she said, panic rising in her throat. "I don't have insurance, I don't have money, I don't have anywhere to go." The doctor's expression was sympathetic but firm. "Your uncle provided insurance information before he left. The financial side is covered. As for where you'll recover, that's something you'll need to arrange, but not immediately. You're not being discharged today." After the doctor left, silence stretched between Olivia and Eva. The older woman looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes and her normally neat braid coming undone at the edges. "You stayed," Olivia said finally, unable to process this simple kindness from a virtual stranger. Eva shrugged, a small gesture that somehow conveyed both discomfort with gratitude and the obviousness of her choice. "Couldn't very well leave you to face all this alone." "Why?" The question escaped before Olivia could reconsider it. "You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." Eva was quiet for a long moment, her gaze drifting to the window where morning light illuminated the distant mountains. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of personal understanding. 25 years ago, I was you," she said simply. "Different circumstances, different dreams, but the same crossroads. Choosing between what others wanted for me and what I needed for myself." Olivia waited, sensing there was more to the story. I wanted to be a photographer, Ava continued. National Geographic, traveling the world, documenting wilderness and wildlife. Had a full scholarship to a prestigious program in New York. What happened? Ava's smile was tinged with old regret. My family needed me. My father died. My mother couldn't manage alone. My younger siblings needed support. So I stayed, took the railroad job because it was stable, good benefits, decent pay. Told myself it was temporary. And it wasn't, Olivia guessed. 25 years later, here I am. Station manager in Cascade Falls. Not a bad life, but not the one I'd dreamed of. The admission hung between them, neither judgment nor advice, simply context for why a stranger might care about Olivia's choices. Do you regret it? Olivia asked. Ava considered this carefully. I regret not finding a middle path. Not looking harder for solutions that would have let me help my family without completely abandoning my own dreams. The world isn't as binary as it seems when you're young, full of either or choices. There are usually alternatives if you have the support to find them. Before Olivia could respond, a nurse entered with medication and fresh bandages. By the time the medical necessities were handled, exhaustion was pulling Olivia back toward. Sleep, rest, Eva said, gathering her things. I need to check on the station, but I'll be back later. We can talk more then. Olivia wanted to protest, to ask for guarantees that Eva wouldn't simply disappear from her life as quickly as she'd entered it. But the medication was already working its way through her system, making her eyelids heavy. Thank you, she managed. For everything. Ava paused at the door, her expression softening. Sometimes we all need someone to stand between us and the storm, Olivia. Get some rest. The world will still be there when you wake up, and your choices will still be yours to make. As sleep claimed her, Olivia realized that for the first time since fleeing her father's house, she wasn't afraid of what tomorrow might bring. Whatever challenges awaited, she had found an unexpected ally in this quiet mountain town where she'd never meant to stop. The fever had broken, but the real journey was just beginning. Olivia spent the next 3 days in Cascade Falls General Hospital, drifting between sleep and wakefulness as her body fought to heal. Each time she opened her eyes, she half expected to find her father looming over her bed, ready to drag her back to a life she no longer wanted. Instead, she found Ava appearing like clockwork between her shifts at the station, bringing books, magazines, and updates from the outside world. Your uncle called again, Ava mentioned on the third afternoon, arranging fresh wildflowers in a mason jar by the window. Wanted to know when you'd be discharged. I told him the doctor hasn't decided yet. Olivia picked at the loose threads on her hospital blanket. Did he say anything about my father? Only that he's concerned and wants to speak with you when you're feeling better. Ava's tone was carefully neutral, but Olivia caught the skepticism beneath it. That means he's furious but trying to play it smart, Olivia translated. The Juilliard deadline passed yesterday. I'm officially a disappointment now. Ava settled into the visitor's chair, her practical boots propped on the edge of Olivia's bed in a gesture that had become familiar over their growing acquaintance. Tell me about your mother, she said, changing the subject with gentle directness. The request caught Olivia off guard. People rarely asked about her mother, as if Helen Chun had simply ceased to exist in the family narrative after her death 11 years ago. She was beautiful, Olivia said finally, memories surfacing like bubbles in still water. Not just how she looked, but how she was. She found beauty everywhere, in thunderstorms, in weeds growing through sidewalk cracks in the way light hit. Ordinary things at certain angles. Ava listened without interruption, her eyes warm with genuine interest. She was the one who started me on piano, Olivia continued, surprising herself with the admission. But not because she wanted me to be famous or perfect. She just thought music was another way to see beauty in the world. After she died, it changed. My father turned it into this mission This identity I couldn't escape. And what would she think about environmental science? Ava asked, her question cutting straight to the heart of Olivia's dilemma. Tears welled unexpectedly. She would love it, Olivia whispered. She used to take me hiking in the mountains, taught me the names of plants and birds. Said nature was the greatest symphony ever composed. Ava nodded, as if confirming something she'd already suspected. Sounds like she'd want you to follow your heart, not just your father's plan. But he sacrificed so much, Olivia countered, voicing the guilt that had haunted her decision. All those lessons, competitions, special schools. He really believed he was securing my future. Parents often confuse their dreams with what's best for their children, Ava said. Doesn't make them villains, just human. The question is whether you're willing to sacrifice your happiness to spare him disappointment. When put that way, the answer seemed clearer than it had in months of agonizing. Before Olivia could respond, however, Dr. Martin entered with discharge. Papers and instructions. You're recovering well, she announced, but you're not fully healed. No heavy lifting, no strenuous activity, and definitely no long-distance travel for at least 10 more days. You'll need to stay local for follow-up appointments. Reality crashed back with crushing force. Olivia had no place to stay, no money for hotels, and nowhere to go but back to her father's house, exactly what she'd been running from. I've been thinking about that, Eva said, seemingly reading Olivia's thoughts. I have a spare room at my place. Nothing fancy, but it's clean and quiet. You'd be welcome to stay until you're cleared for travel. The offer hung in the air, startling in its generosity. I couldn't impose, Olivia began automatically. It's not an imposition if it's freely offered, Eva countered. Besides, my house is too big for just me anyway. Been rattling around in it since my mother passed last year. Dr. Martin, sensing the undercurrents, tactfully excused herself after leaving the discharge instructions. When the door closed behind her, Olivia turned to Eva with naked vulnerability. Why are you doing all this? Being so kind to a stranger? Eva's expression shifted, a complex mix of emotions crossing her weathered features. Maybe because I see something of myself in you. Maybe because everyone deserves a chance to choose their own path without being forced by circumstances. Or maybe, she added with a hint of a smile, I just like your company. Later that afternoon, Olivia found herself being helped into Ava's practical SUV, still weak from surgery, but free from the hospital for the first time in days. The mountain town revealed itself as they drove, a picturesque main street with century-old buildings, small businesses with hand-painted signs, and everywhere the dramatic backdrop of the Cascade Range rising toward the sky. It's beautiful, Olivia murmured, watching sunlight glint off distant snowcaps. Cascade Falls has its charms, Ava agreed. Small enough to know your neighbors, big enough to mind your own business. Most folks here believe in second chances. Ava's house proved to be a refurbished craftsman style on a quiet street 3 blocks from the station. A wide front porch supported wooden rockers and hanging baskets overflowing with flowers. Inside, the decor was simple but warm, comfortable. Furniture, bookshelves filled with travel guides and photography volumes, and everywhere evidence of a life fully lived, if not exactly as planned. Spare rooms upstairs, first door on the right, Ava directed, helping Olivia with her meager belongings. Bathrooms across the hall. Make yourself at home while I fix us something to eat. Alone in the guest room, Olivia took stock of her situation. She was safe, at least temporarily. Her medical crisis had been handled. But the larger questions remained unanswered. What would she do when she was well enough to travel? How would she finance her education without her father's support? And was she truly prepared to build a life entirely on her own terms? The room offered no answers, only a comfortable bed, clean linens, and a window overlooking a small backyard garden where birds flitted between native plants. Exhausted from even this minimal exertion, Olivia sank onto the bed, her fingers absently tracing patterns on the handmade quilt. She must have dozed off because the next thing she knew, Eva was gently knocking on the doorframe. "Dinner's ready if you're feeling up to it." Nothing complicated, just soup and homemade bread. The kitchen, like the rest of the house, reflected Eva's practical nature, well-used cooking equipment, herbs growing in pots on the windowsill, and a round-up table that had clearly witnessed decades of meals and conversations. They ate in comfortable silence for several minutes before Eva spoke. "I called the station while you were resting. Took some vacation time, first in 3 years. Figure you could use someone around while you're recovering." Olivia looked up in surprise. "You didn't have to do that. I can manage." "Probably," Eva agreed mildly, "but you shouldn't have to. Besides, I've been meaning to tackle some projects around here." Good timing all around. The simple acceptance of help was a new experience for Olivia. In her father's world, assistance always came with expectations attached, strings that eventually became chains. Eva's straightforward kindness, offered without demands, was both confusing and deeply touching. "Thank you," Olivia said finally, the words inadequate but sincere. Eva waved away her gratitude. "That's what community means, Olivia. People helping each other through the rough patches. Now tell me more about this environmental science program you're so set on." The conversation flowed easily after that, ranging from Olivia's academic interests to Eva's knowledge of the local wilderness areas. For the first time in months, Olivia felt the knot of anxiety in her chest begin to loosen. Here, miles from her father's influence, she could almost believe in the possibility of a different future. "You should sleep," Eva said eventually, noting Olivia's flagging energy. "Doctor said rest is the best medicine. We can talk more tomorrow." That night, in the unfamiliar bed in a stranger's home that somehow already felt safer than her father's mansion, Olivia slept without dreams for the first time since her mother's death. The next morning brought sunshine streaming through the guest room window and the distant sound of Eva moving about the kitchen below. Olivia dressed carefully, mindful of her healing incision, and made her way downstairs to find Eva at the table with coffee and newspapers spread before her. "There she is," Eva smiled, pouring a second cup. "How are you feeling this morning?" "Better," Olivia said, surprised to find it was true. The constant pain had subsided to a dull ache, and her head felt clearer than it had in days. "Less like I've been hit by a train." "Good. Doctor called to schedule your follow-up for next Wednesday. That gives you almost a week to regain your strength." A week. The knowledge that her sanctuary had a time limit sent anxiety spiraling through Olivia's chest again. Eva, observant as always, caught the shift in her expression. "One day at a time," she advised gently. "Right now your job is healing. The rest will sort itself out. Will it?" Olivia couldn't keep the doubt from her voice. "My father controls everything. My bank accounts, my college fund, even my phone. I have nothing." "You have yourself," Eva corrected. "And that's more than enough to start with." The simple conviction in her voice made Olivia want to believe her, even as practical concerns crowded her mind. Eva seemed to sense her internal struggle. "I have an idea," she said, folding the newspaper. "You're not cleared for hiking yet, but a short drive might do you good. Get you out of these four walls, give you some perspective." An hour later, they were winding up a mountain road in Eva's SUV, climbing steadily through pine forests that gave way to stunning vistas of the valley below. Eva drove with the confidence of someone who knew every curve and switchback intimately, occasionally pointing out landmarks or wildlife as they passed. "Where are we going?" Olivia asked as they turned onto an unmarked gravel road. "Somewhere special," Eva replied cryptically. "A place that helped me make my own tough decisions." The road ended at a small clearing with a weathered wooden sign. Eagles Point Overlook, elevation 6,420 feet. Beyond the parking area, a short, accessible path led to a stone platform perched on the edge of a cliff face. Can you manage the walk? Ava asked, eyeing Olivia's careful movements with concern. I'll take it slow, Olivia assured her, drawn by curiosity and the promise of the view ahead. The platform, when they reached it, offered a panorama that stole Olivia's breath. Mountains stretched in all directions, valleys carved by ancient. Glaciers lay below, and the distant glint of the Pacific Ocean was just visible on the western horizon. Eagles soared on thermal currents, their wingspan impressive even from a distance. This is incredible, Olivia whispered, afraid to break the spell of the place with normal volume. Eva nodded, satisfaction in her expression. This is what saved me from bitterness, she said, gesturing toward the wilderness spread before them. When I gave up my photography dreams, I thought I was giving up beauty. But then I found this place, and 100 others like it in these mountains. Realized that some beauty needs to be experienced, not just captured. Olivia understood suddenly why Eva had brought her here. You found your middle path. I did, Eva confirmed. I couldn't travel the world with National Geographic, but I could explore every inch of these mountains on my days off. Couldn't make my living as a photographer, but nothing stopped me from documenting the changing seasons, the wildlife, the hidden places most tourists never find. She pointed to a distant ridge where sunlight caught the tumbling cascade of a waterfall. That's Bridal Veil Falls, most beautiful spot in the county in springtime. I've got photos of it in every condition, frozen in winter, raging during the melt, gentle in late summer. Never gets published anywhere except the local calendar, but that doesn't make it less meaningful to me. Olivia felt something shift in her perspective, like a lens coming into focus after being blurred. You're saying I don't have to choose between music and science, that there might be a way to keep both. I'm saying that passion doesn't have to be all or nothing, Ava clarified. Your father sees Juilliard or failure. You see environmental science or nothing. But what if there's a third option? What if you could study ecology and still keep music in your life? Not as a career, perhaps, but as something that brings you joy? The possibility had never occurred to Olivia, raised as she was in her father's world of extremes and absolutes. The concept of compromise, not as defeat but as wisdom, was revolutionary. They stayed at the overlook for nearly an hour, watching the play of light across the mountains as clouds drifted overhead. Olivia felt a calmness settle over her, not erasing her problems but putting them into perspective against the ancient landscape. On the drive back, Eva broke their companionable silence with unexpected news. I made some calls this morning. There's a small community college here in Cascade Falls. Nothing prestigious, but they have transferable credits and a good environmental sciences program with field study components in the national forest. Olivia turned to her, confused. Why? Are you telling me this? Because sometimes a detour isn't a setback. It's just a different route to where you're meant to be. Ava kept her eyes on the winding road. You could take courses here while you figure out your next steps. Build some credits, establish residency for in-state tuition at state universities, maybe even qualify for independent student status for financial aid. The suggestion was both practical and radical, a potential bridge between Olivia's current crisis and her desired future. I couldn't afford even community college right now, she pointed out. There's a position opening at the station, Eva continued as if she hadn't heard the objection. Assistant station manager, part-time. Pays enough for a small apartment and basic expenses, with enough left over for tuition if you're careful. Hours would work around classes. Olivia stared at her, speechless at the cascade of possibilities suddenly unfolding. You'd hire me? You barely know me. Ava's laugh was warm with genuine amusement. I'm a pretty good judge of character. Olivia Chen. And anyone who'd risk everything to follow their true calling, rather than take the easy path, has exactly the kind of integrity I value in a colleague. The offer was almost too perfect, too precisely tailored to Olivia's needs to be coincidence. Did you plan this all along? From the moment I stepped off that train? Let's just say I recognized someone at a crossroads, Eva replied. And I remembered how much I wished someone had shown me a third option when I was facing my own impossible choice. As they descended back into the valley, Cascade Falls revealing itself below them, Olivia felt a strange sense of homecoming to a place she'd never intended to visit. The town wasn't Seattle, wasn't the future she'd planned, but perhaps it could be a way station on her journey, a place to heal, to grow, to discover her own path forward. I'd need to talk to my father eventually, she said, thinking aloud. Not to ask permission, but to explain. To try to make him understand. When you're ready, Eva agreed. On your terms, not his. From a position of strength, not desperation. The plan wasn't perfect. Community college credits might not all transfer to her dream school. Part-time work would mean living frugally. And her father's disappointment would still be a weight to bear. But for the first time since fleeing Seattle, Olivia could envision a future that belonged truly to her, not rejected in rebellion, not accepted in submission, but created through conscious choice. As they pulled into Ava's driveway, Olivia's phone, silent for days as she recovered, suddenly chimed with an incoming call. Her father's name flashed on the screen, the moment of reckoning arriving sooner than she'd anticipated. Eva turned off the engine, her expression supportive but neutral. Your choice, she said simply. Answer or don't. Whatever you decide, you're not alone anymore. Olivia stared at the phone, her heart racing as she considered her options. The old Olivia would have either ignored the call in defiance or answered in fear. But the person she was becoming, the one who had survived illness, found unexpected friendship, and glimpsed a path forward, could do neither. Instead, she took a deep breath and pressed accept, ready to speak her truth with both compassion and conviction. Whatever came next, she would face it standing in her own power, supported, but not defined by those around her. Hello, Father, she said, her voice steady and clear as mountain air. I think it's time we really talked. Hello, Father, Olivia said, her voice steadier than her racing heart. I think it's time we really talked. The silence that followed stretched for what felt like eternity. When Victor Chun finally spoke, his voice carried none of the anger Olivia had expected, only a bone-deep weariness that was somehow worse. Olivia, are you safe? Are you well? The simple questions, devoid of accusations, caught her off guard. Yes to both, she answered carefully. I had appendicitis and needed emergency surgery, but I'm recovering. I'm staying with someone who's been very kind to me. Another pause, this one filled with the sound of her father taking a controlled breath. Your uncle told me. Why didn't you call sooner? Olivia glanced at Ava, who had stepped a respectful distance away but remained within sight, a silent pillar of support. I needed time to think, to figure out what I want to say to you. And have you figured it out? Some of it, Olivia admitted. I'm not coming home, Father. Not right now. I've missed the Juilliard deadline, and I'm not sorry about that. She braced for explosion, for the familiar tirade about ingratitude and wasted opportunities. Instead, her father sighed, a sound so heavy with defeat that it momentarily stole her resolve. I know, he said simply. Philip told me you were passionate about your decision. I just don't understand why, Livy. You've worked toward Juilliard your entire life. The childhood nickname, unused for years, hit Olivia like a physical blow. No, Father. You've worked toward Juilliard my entire life. I played piano because it made Mother happy, and then because it made you proud. But it was never my dream. Environmental science, he said flatly. Trees and dirt instead of Chopin and Rachmaninoff. Life instead of performance, Olivia corrected gently. I need to find my own way, even if it's not the path you chose for me. The conversation continued for almost an hour, moving from tense to reflective as both father and daughter navigated this new territory between them. Victor didn't suddenly embrace her choices or offer his blessing, but neither did he threaten or demand. It was perhaps the most honest exchange they'd had since her mother's death. I've unfrozen your accounts, he said finally. Your savings, your monthly allowance, they're accessible again. Whatever you decide, I won't have my daughter destitute. Relief warred with a strange disappointment in Olivia's chest. Part of her had been prepared to make it entirely on her own, to prove her independence through complete separation from her father's resources. The offer of financial support, while practical, felt like both gift and complication. Thank you, she said eventually. But I need to stand on my own, at least for a while. I've been offered a part-time job here. I'm thinking of taking some community college courses. The silence that followed told her exactly how her father felt about community. College compared to Juilliard. And your music? Will you abandon it entirely? The question was fair, piercing to the heart of what Olivia had been contemplating since her conversation with Eva at Eagles Point. No, she said slowly. I won't abandon music. It's part of me, part of what connects me to Mother. But it needs to be on my terms, something I choose to share, not something I'm required to perform. When they finally ended the call, Olivia felt drained, but strangely peaceful. Nothing had been truly resolved. Her father hadn't magically transformed into a supporter of her new direction. But a door had been left open between them, a possibility of eventual understanding, if not immediate approval. Eva, who had busied herself in the garden during the call, approached as Olivia set down her phone. How did it go? Better than I expected, worse than I hoped. Olivia managed a tired smile. He didn't disown me, but he doesn't understand my choices either. Understanding takes time, Eva said, settling beside her on the porch steps. For both of you. The following days established a rhythm to Olivia's recovery in Cascade Falls. Mornings were for rest and light activity around Ava's house. Afternoons often included short drives to scenic viewpoints or walks through the town as Olivia's strength gradually returned. In the evenings, they would share simple meals and conversation that ranged from philosophical to practical. On the 5th day, Eva brought home paperwork for the assistant station manager position. No pressure, she insisted, placing the forms on the kitchen table. But the opportunity is real if you want it. Olivia spent that evening reviewing the job description, calculating potential budgets, and researching the community college's environmental science program on Ava's laptop. The pieces were falling into place for a future she'd never imagined, but now found herself actively choosing. I could make this work, she said over breakfast the next morning, pushing a hand-drawn budget across the table to Eva. Between the job, a small student loan, and living frugally, I could manage tuition and a modest apartment. Eva studied the figures with approving eyes. Tight but doable. And you've factored in health insurance through the railroad, which is smart. I'd still need to find a place to live, Olivia added, voicing the practical concern that had been growing as her recovery progressed. She couldn't impose on Ava's hospitality indefinitely. About that, Eva began, then hesitated uncharacteristically. I've been thinking. This house has 4 bedrooms and only 1 occupant. It's more space than I need, and maintaining it on my own is becoming a chore as I get older. Olivia waited, sensing there was more to this introduction than casual observation. I've considered taking in a boarder before, someone to help with utilities and basic upkeep in exchange for reduced rent. If you're interested, the arrangement could benefit us both. The offer was delivered with such practical consideration that it took Olivia a moment to recognize the generosity behind it. You'd let me stay? Long term? It's a business arrangement. Eva clarified, though her eyes were warm. You'd pay rent, less than market rate, but enough to make it fair. You'd have your own space, your own life. I'd have company and help with the heavier yard work once you're fully recovered. It was another unexpected bridge between crisis and possibility, not charity, which would have been difficult to accept, but partnership of a sort. The kind of arrangement that preserved dignity while acknowledging need. I'd like that, Olivia said finally. Thank you. Eva nodded, businesslike but pleased. We'll draw up terms once you're officially employed. Speaking of which, your interview with the regional manager is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Olivia's eyes widened in alarm. Tomorrow? But I don't have anything appropriate to wear, and my resume needs updating, and already handled, Eva interrupted calmly. Mrs. Winters at the boutique downtown is sending over some suitable options this afternoon. Her daughter's about your size. And I took the liberty of drafting a resume based on what you've told me about your experience with the Youth Symphony, administration, and your summer internship at your father's company. The thoughtfulness of these preparations, practical solutions without fanfare or expectation of gratitude, was becoming a hallmark of Ava's support. She helped without diminishing, guided without controlling, and in doing so, offered Olivia a new model of adult relationship to replace the complex tangle of obligation and resentment that had defined her relationship with her father. The interview the next day went surprisingly well. The regional manager, Mr. Daniels, seemed more interested in Olivia's organizational skills and quick thinking than her lack of direct railroad experience. When he asked why she wanted the position, clearly curious about an educated young woman applying for a small-town station job, Olivia found herself answering with unexpected honesty. I'm rebuilding my life in a direction that feels authentic to me, she said. This position offers stability while I pursue education in environmental science. But more than that, working for the railroad means being part of something that connects communities and facilitates movement through some of the most beautiful landscapes in the country. There's meaning in that kind of work. Mr. Daniels studied her with new interest. Ava said you had unusual perspective. I see what she meant. He closed his folder with a decisive motion. The job is yours, if you want it. Training starts next. Monday. The news should have been purely celebratory, but as Olivia left the station, a familiar SUV pulled into the parking lot, her Uncle Philip's vehicle, the same one that had appeared the night of her medical emergency. He stepped out, impeccably dressed as always, his expression unreadable behind designer sunglasses. Olivia, he greeted her, his tone carefully neutral. You're looking well. Much improved from our last meeting. Instinct urged her to retreat, to find Eva for backup, but Olivia forced herself to stand her ground. Uncle Philip, what brings you to Cascade Falls? He removed his sunglasses, revealing eyes that held more uncertainty than she'd expected. Your father sent me. With this. He handed her a leather portfolio embossed with her initials. Inside, Olivia found legal documents, bank statements, and a handwritten letter from her father. Her hands trembled slightly as she unfolded the familiar stationery. Not here, Philip said gently, noting her distress. Is there somewhere we could talk privately? Cascade Falls' small cafe was nearly empty at mid-morning, allowing them a corner table away from curious ears. Philip ordered coffee for himself and tea for Olivia, remembering, she noted with surprise, her preference. He's not trying to control you, Philip said once they were settled. The documents give you full access to your trust fund, the one your mother established for you, which doesn't mature until you're 25. He's arranged for early release of quarterly payments to cover educational expenses, regardless of which institution you choose. Olivia stared at him in disbelief. He's allowing me to use my trust fund for environmental science instead of Juilliard? Philip's smile was tinged with sadness. Your father is many things, Olivia, but he's not a monster. Stubborn, controlling. Single-minded, yes, but he loves you in his way. Your disappearance shook him more than you know. It wasn't a disappearance, Olivia corrected. It was a choice, one I had a right to make. Fair enough, Philip conceded. The point is he's trying. This is his version of a peace offering. He doesn't understand your passion for environmental science, but he's willing to support your education. That's not insignificant for a man who never learned to compromise. Olivia turned her attention to her father's letter, reading it twice to ensure she understood his intentions. The prose was stiff, formal, more like a business correspondence than a father writing to his daughter. But between the formal lines, she detected genuine concern and perhaps the first tentative steps toward acceptance. "He wants me to come home for Thanksgiving," she said finally, looking up from the letter. Philip nodded. "He does. No strings attached, just family dinner, your choice entirely." The gesture, like the financial arrangements, was both generous and complicated. Returning home, even temporarily, would mean confronting the emotional landscape she'd fled. Yet refusing would close a door her father had unexpectedly opened. "I'll think about it," she said finally. "Thank him for the trust fund access. It helps." Philip seemed about to say more, then checked himself. "There's one other thing," he said instead, reaching into his briefcase. "Your mother's journals. Victor thought you might want them, given your current interest in the natural world." The small leather-bound books, 5 in total, were instantly recognizable to Olivia. Helen Chen had carried one with her on every nature walk, every family trip, recording observations and sketching plants and animals with delicate precision. Olivia had glimpsed them throughout her childhood, but had never been permitted to read them after her mother's death. "He's giving these to me now?" The significance of the gesture wasn't lost on her. These journals represented a connection to her mother that her father had guarded jealously for years. "He found them while going through the attic after you left," Philip explained. "Said he'd forgotten how much Helen loved the outdoors. How she always said you had her eye for natural patterns." Tears threatened as Olivia gently touched the worn leather covers. "Thank you for bringing these. They mean more than the trust fund." After Philip left, promising to convey her thanks to her father, Olivia remained at the cafe, slowly paging through the earliest journal. Her mother's handwriting flowed across the pages, accompanied by meticulous drawings of mountain wildflowers, bird migrations, and geological formations. Between scientific observations were personal reflections, thoughts on beauty, interconnection, and the spiritual dimensions of wilderness. One entry, dated shortly after Olivia's 5th birthday, caught her attention. "Took Livy to Mason Ridge. Today, she spotted 3 different butterfly species and remembered their names from our book. Victor thinks I'm turning her into a little scientist, but I see something deeper in her connection to nature, a reverence, an intuitive understanding of systems and patterns. Whether she becomes a biologist or continues with her music, this sensitivity to beauty will serve her well. The greatest gift we can give our daughter is the freedom to discover her own path to wonder." Olivia closed the journal, her mother's words resonating across the years with uncanny relevance. Helen Chen had understood something that both Olivia and her father had forgotten in the years following her death, that passion could take many forms, and that the truest path was one that honored authentic connection rather than external expectations. When Eva found her still at the cafe an hour later, Olivia was ready to share both her employment news and the unexpected developments with her father. Eva listened without interruption, her expression thoughtful as she absorbed the rapid changes in Olivia's circumstances. "So the financial pressure is eased," she summarized when Olivia finished. "That's significant. Does it change your plans?" It was the perfect question, not telling Olivia what to do, but asking her to clarify her own intentions now that her options had expanded. With her trust fund available, she could afford to transfer directly to a 4-year university, could rent an apartment without roommates, could potentially move forward without the stepping stone of community college or part-time work at the station. I still want the job, Olivia said after a moment's reflection. And the room in your house, if the offer still stands. The trust fund gives me options, but it doesn't change what I need right now: practical experience, community, connection, time to figure out exactly which direction my studies should take. Ava's smile held approval and perhaps a touch of pride. The offers absolutely stand. And I think you're making wise choices, Olivia, not reacting out of either rebellion or obligation, but genuinely considering what serves your growth. That evening, as they sat on Ava's porch watching twilight settle over the mountains, Olivia found herself contemplating the strange journey that had brought her to this moment. A month ago, she had been a desperate runaway with a one-way train ticket and no real plan beyond escape. Now she was becoming something else entirely, not a prodigy defined by her father's ambitions, but a young woman actively shaping her own future with courage and clarity. My follow-up appointment is tomorrow, she reminded Eva. Dr. Martin will probably clear me for normal activities. Just in time for your job training on Monday, Eva nodded. Things are falling into place. They are, Olivia agreed. But there's something I need to do first, something important. Eva raised an eyebrow questioningly. I need to play the piano again, Olivia said quietly. Not because anyone expects it, but because part of me still needs that form of expression. Is there anywhere in town with a decent instrument? The question seemed to please Eva immensely. As a matter of fact, there is. The community center has a restored Steinway, donation from a former resident who made it big in Seattle. It's available to anyone who wants to use it during regular hours. Would you come with me? Olivia asked, surprising herself with the request. I haven't played since the night I decided to leave home. I'm not sure how it will feel. I'd be honored, Eva said simply. The next morning, with medical clearance from Dr. Martin and a growing sense of purpose, Olivia found herself seated at the community center's piano, a beautiful instrument that, while not as grand as her father's Bissendorfer, had a warm, resonant quality that invited exploration. The room was empty except for Eva, who had positioned herself by the window, present but unobtrusive. Olivia placed her hands on the keys, feeling the familiar texture beneath her fingertips, and for a moment feared that old pressures would resurface, the demand for perfection, the weight of expectations. Instead, she felt something unexpected. Freedom. Without her father's critical ear, without competition judges or recording equipment, without anything riding on her performance except her own enjoyment, the piano was transformed from obligation back to opportunity. She began with scales, simple warm-ups that allowed her fingers to remember their training. Then, without consciously deciding, she moved into one of her mother's favorite pieces, Debussy's Clair de Lune, with its evocation of moonlight on water. The music flowed through her, not perfect but authentic, expressing something beyond technique. When she finished, the silence that followed felt purified somehow, cleared of old tensions. Ava remained by the window, her expression contemplative and moved. That was beautiful, she said finally. Different from what I expected. Different how? Olivia asked, curious about what Eva had heard in her playing. More personal. Less like a performance and more like a conversation. Ava moved closer to the piano. Is that how it felt to you? Olivia considered this, running her fingers lightly over the keys without pressing them. Yes, for the first time in years, I was playing for myself, not for an audience or a judge or my father. It felt like reclaiming something that used to bring me joy before it became work. That's the middle path, Eva said softly. Not abandoning your music, but transforming your relationship to it, making it yours again. As they left the community center, stepping into the clear mountain sunshine, Olivia felt a profound sense of integration, as if pieces of herself, that had been compartmentalized were finally finding their proper relationship to each other. The pianist and the budding environmental scientist were not separate identities, but facets of the same person, each enriching the other. "I'm ready," she said, as much to herself as to Eva. "For the job, for classes, for whatever comes next." Eva nodded, understanding the deeper meaning behind the simple declaration. "One step at a time, Olivia." That's how all journeys unfold, even the most transformative ones. They walked back toward Ava's house, now their shared home, as the mountain stood witness to this quiet moment of becoming. The path ahead wasn't perfectly clear, and there would be challenges to navigate, including the complex ongoing relationship with her father. But Olivia Chen was no longer running away from a future she feared. She was walking confidently toward one she was creating with intention, courage, and newfound clarity. The next chapter of her life was beginning, not in defiance or defeat, but in the powerful space of authentic choice. Autumn in Cascade Falls painted the mountains in fiery splendor, each morning revealing new shades of crimson and gold across the ridgelines. 3 months had passed since Olivia's emergency surgery, an unexpected detour from her original journey. The small railroad station that had once been merely a desperate stopping point was now the center of her daily life, its rhythms and responsibilities as familiar to her as piano scales had once been. "Morning, Ms. Chen," called Martin Adler, a regular commuter who taught high school science in the next town over. "Beautiful day for your first solo shift, isn't it?" Olivia smiled as she checked his monthly pass. "Gorgeous, though they're predicting early snow on the higher elevations. By tonight, stay warm on your return trip." This easy exchange, practical information wrapped in genuine human connection, represented everything she'd come to value about her new role. As assistant station manager, she wasn't just processing tickets and updating schedules. She was a vital link in the community, helping people navigate both literal and metaphorical journeys. "You've got this," Eva had assured her that morning, deliberately leaving for her day off before Olivia's shift began. 3 months of training, and you already know more about operations than most agents with a year under their belt. Now, as the morning rush subsided and the station settled into its midday lull, Olivia reviewed the freight manifests with the focused attention that had once been reserved for musical scores. Each form represented actual goods that people depended on: medical supplies for the clinic, textbooks for the community college, equipment for local businesses. The abstract numbers translated to concrete impact in a way that competition rankings never had. Her phone chimed with a calendar alert: NV Science 101, final project due tomorrow. The reminder sent a small thrill of accomplishment through her. Her first semester at Cascade Community College was drawing to a close, and Professor Winters had already hinted that her research project on watershed protection might be worthy of submission to a regional conference. The work wasn't easy. Balancing full-time studies with part-time employment demanded disciplined time management and occasional sacrifices of sleep. But every challenge came with a sense of purpose that made the effort worthwhile. This wasn't perfection pursued to please others. It was excellence cultivated to serve genuine passion. The afternoon train arrived precisely on schedule, bringing with it the usual mix of commuters, tourists, and the occasional unexpected visitor. As Olivia helped an elderly passenger with his luggage, she spotted a familiar figure descending from the first-class car. Tall, impeccably dressed, with a bearing that seemed out of place among the casual mountain town arrivals. "Father," she breathed, her heart accelerating despite her mental preparation for this moment. They had spoken regularly by phone over the past months, their conversations gradually evolving from strained politeness to cautious understanding. But this was his first visit to Cascade Falls, his first glimpse of the life she was building without his direction. Victor Chun spotted his daughter immediately, his expression transforming from travel-weary stoicism to something softer, more vulnerable. He waited until she had finished assisting the elderly passenger before approaching, his eyes taking in her uniform, her confident posture, the way other travelers naturally deferred to her authority within the station. "Olivia," he said simply, the single word carrying a complex freight of emotion. "Welcome to Cascade Falls," she replied, fighting the urge to revert to the deferential posture of her childhood. "How was your journey?" "Long," he admitted, "but comfortable. The mountain views were unexpected." Something about his careful observation of the landscape, so unlike his usual urban focus, reminded Olivia of her mother. She wondered if he had been reading Helen's journals as well, finding connections to his late wife in the natural world she had so loved. "I'm on duty until 4, Olivia explained, gesturing to her workstation. "Ava offered to show you around town while I finish my shift, then we can all have dinner together at the house." Victor nodded, though Olivia detected a flicker of apprehension at the mention of Ava, the woman he knew only as the unexpected guardian who had intervened in his family's affairs. "I look forward to meeting her properly. Your calls have made it clear how important she's become to you." Before Olivia could respond, Ava appeared in the station doorway, her timing as impeccable as always. She approached with the direct, unpretentious manner that had first won Olivia's trust. "Mr. Chen," she greeted him, extending her hand. "Eva Torres, your daughter has become an invaluable part of our community. You should be very proud." The simple statement, delivered without flattery or agenda, seemed to catch Victor off guard. He accepted her handshake, his usual corporate mask momentarily slipping to reveal genuine curiosity. "She speaks highly of you, Miss Torres. I owe you a debt for helping her when she was ill." "No debt," Eva corrected gently. "Just the natural response of one human being to another in need. Olivia has more than repaid any initial kindness through her contributions to the station and the town." Watching them, her father with his carefully controlled demeanor, Ava with her straightforward authenticity, Olivia realized how profoundly her understanding of strength had transformed. Victor's power came from position, wealth, and unyielding certainty. Ava's flowed from self-knowledge, community connection, and the confidence to adapt without losing core values. "I've arranged a walking tour of our little downtown," Eva was saying, with stops at the community college and the environmental research center where Olivia volunteers on weekends. "Then perhaps the scenic overlook, weather permitting. Would that suit you?" Victor glanced at Olivia, seeking confirmation that this program met with her approval. The small gesture, his deference to her preferences rather than automatic decision-making, represented months of gradual adjustment in their relationship. "Perfect," Olivia assured them both. "I'll see you at home at 5. As they departed, Olivia returned to her duties with renewed focus, aware that this visit represented more than just family reconciliation. It was an opportunity for her father to witness firsthand the authenticity of her new path, not as a rebellion against him, but as a positive choice aligned with her deepest values. The remainder of her shift passed quickly, filled with the practical tasks that had become satisfying rhythms in her new life. When 4 o'clock arrived, she completed her handover to the evening manager and headed not to the station parking lot, but to the community center 2 blocks away. The Steinway waited in the practice room, its presence a comfort rather than a demand. In the months since her first tentative return to music, Olivia had established a personal discipline entirely different from her former regimen. She played 3 times weekly, not from obligation but from desire, exploring pieces that spoke to her soul rather than showcased her technique. Today, with her father's visit bringing past and present into juxtaposition, she felt drawn to Batch, his mathematical precision appealing to the scientific mind she was developing, his depth of feeling satisfying the emotional expression she had once feared to reveal. The prelude in C major flowed from her fingers with a clarity that came from choice rather than compulsion. Each note existed for its own sake, not as a means to external validation. When she finished, the silence held. No anxiety, no dread of criticism, only peaceful completion. That was lovely. Victor's voice from the doorway startled her. She turned to find both her father and Ava watching, though from their relaxed postures, they had been there for some time. "I thought you were touring the town," Olivia said, confused by their unexpected appearance. "We were," Ava confirmed. "But your father mentioned wanting to hear you play, and I knew this was your usual practice time." Victor moved into the room, his gaze fixed on the instrument. "Different from the Bissendorfer," he observed. "Warmer tone, less brightness in the upper register, but more heart," Olivia said quietly. "At least in my hands." Her father studied her with new attention, noting perhaps the confidence with which she now discussed her playing, not defensive, not seeking approval, but simply stating her artistic truth. "Ava has shown me your college, your volunteer work, your community," he said finally. "It's clear you've found something meaningful here, something that engages your intellect and your passion." The acknowledgement, understated but sincere, meant more than effusive praise would have. Victor Chen was seeing her, truly seeing her, perhaps for the first time since her mother's death. "I have," Olivia confirmed. "It's not the future we planned, but it's the one that feels right to me." "Your mother would understand better than I do," Victor admitted, his gaze drifting to the window where mountain peaks were visible against the darkening sky. "She always said you had her heart for wild places." The mention of Helen, offered voluntarily rather than extracted reluctantly, created an opening Olivia had been waiting for. "I've been reading her journals," she said. "They've helped me understand parts of myself I couldn't reconcile before, how I can love both batch and biology, find meaning in both crescendos and conservation." Something shifted in Victor's expression, a softening, a recognition. She believed in integration rather than division. That beauty could be found in seemingly opposite domains. He paused, choosing his words with unusual care. "I forgot that after she died. Became rigid in my thinking. Insisted on either or when. She would have seen both and—" This acknowledgement of his own narrowed perspective was more meaningful than any direct apology. Olivia felt something long knotted in her chest begin to loosen. "We should head to the house," Ava suggested gently, sensing the emotional weight of the moment. "I've prepared dinner, and the forecast snow is starting to fall." The walk to Ava's home, now also Olivia's home, their shared address a testament to unexpected kinship, took them through Cascade Falls' picturesque Main Street. Holiday decorations twinkled in shop windows, and the first delicate snowflakes danced in the glow of vintage street lamps. "It's like a postcard," Victor observed, his usual urban sophistication giving way to simple appreciation. "Wait until you see it tomorrow morning," Olivia told him. "Fresh snow on the mountains turns the whole valley into something magical." Ava's house welcomed them with warmth and delicious aromas, her signature vegetable stew simmering on the stove, homemade bread cooling on the counter. Victor took in the comfortable furnishings, the wall of bookshelves, the photographs of mountain landscapes that revealed Ava's artistic eye, despite her abandoned career plans. "Your home is lovely, Ms. Torres," he said with genuine appreciation. "Thank you for opening it to my daughter." "Ava, please," she corrected him warmly. "And it's become Olivia's home, too. She's not a guest here, she's family." The simple declaration might have provoked jealousy from Victor, but something in Ava's tone, inclusive rather than competitive, invited him to expand his understanding of family beyond biological boundaries. "Then I'm grateful to you both," he said, including Olivia in his gaze, for creating a place where she could find her path. Dinner unfolded with surprising ease, the conversation flowing from Olivia's studies to local conservation initiatives to shared memories of Helen that had long been too painful to discuss. Victor revealed aspects of himself rarely displayed in the Chen household: a dry humor, a capacity for attentive listening, an ability to reconsider long-held positions when presented with new perspectives. "I've been thinking about your transfer plans," he said as they lingered over Ava's homemade apple pie. "The University of Washington has an excellent environmental science program, with particular strength in Northwest ecosystems. Their application deadline for fall admission is still 2 months away." Olivia set down her fork, startled by this evidence that her father had been researching options aligned with her interests, rather than trying to redirect her toward his preferences. "I've considered you," she acknowledged. "But I'm also looking at Oregon State and Colorado State. They have strong field research components." Rather than dismissing these alternatives, Victor nodded thoughtfully. "All good options, each with distinct advantages depending on your specific focus." He hesitated, then added, "Whatever you decide, I want to support your choice. Financially, yes, but also emotionally. I haven't been good at that part." The admission cost him visible effort, his corporate polish momentarily stripped away to reveal the flawed, grieving human beneath. Olivia reached across the table to cover his hand with hers, a gesture of connection that would have been unthinkable 6 months earlier. "Thank you," she said simply. "That means everything." Later that evening, after Ava had tactfully retired, to give father and daughter privacy, they sat in the living room watching snow accumulate on the porch railings. The silence between them had transformed from tense to comfortable, allowing space for thoughts to form and feelings to surface. "I've been afraid," Victor confessed suddenly, his gaze fixed on the falling snow. "Since your mother died, I've been terrified of losing you too. I thought if I could control your path, eliminate variables, create the perfect plan, I could keep you safe." He turned to face her, his expression more vulnerable than she had ever seen it. "But I was suffocating. The very spirit that makes you who you are." "I'm still your daughter," Olivia said softly. "That hasn't changed just because I'm charting my own course. If anything, I understand you better now that I'm making my own decisions, feeling the weight of my own choices. You're stronger than I gave you credit for," Victor acknowledged, "more resilient, more certain of your own mind." "I learned that here," Olivia told him, gesturing to encompass not just Ava's house, but the entire experience of the past months. "By falling apart and rebuilding myself according to my own blueprint instead of someone else's design." Victor nodded slowly, absorbing the profound shift in his daughter's identity. "Will you come home for Christmas?" he asked, "not permanently. Not to reconsider your decisions, just to visit. The house is empty without you." The invitation contained no manipulation, no hidden agenda, just honest acknowledgement of loss and hope for reconnection. Olivia felt her heart expand with compassion for this man who, for all his flaws, had always loved her in the best way. He knew how. "I'd like that," she said. "And maybe next summer you could come back here for longer. See the waterfalls at full flow, hike some of the trails Mom wrote about in her journals." The possibility of sharing rather than surrendering her new world seemed to ease something in Victor's posture. "I'd like that too," he said, "to see these mountains through Helen's eyes. Through yours." The next morning dawned clear and brilliant, the promised snowfall having transformed Cascade Falls into a winter wonderland overnight. Olivia rose early for her regular sunrise hike, a ritual that had become essential to her well-being, and was surprised to find her father already in the kitchen, dressed in what appeared to be newly purchased outdoor gear. Ava mentioned, "Your morning route," he explained, somewhat self-consciously adjusting his unfamiliar hiking boots. "I thought I might join you, if that's all right. See what draws you out in these temperatures." The request revealed more openness than Victor had shown in years. Rather than critiquing or avoiding her interests, he was actively seeking to understand them through participation. "I'd love that," Olivia said, meaning it completely. The trail's not difficult, but the view is worth every step. They set out as the first golden light touched the mountain peaks, their breath-forming clouds in the crisp air. Victor moved with the cautious precision of someone unused to uneven terrain but determined to master it. Olivia adjusted her pace to match his, finding unexpected pleasure in sharing her morning sanctuary. When they reached Eagle's Point, the same overlook where Ava had first helped her envision a third path, the panorama literally stopped Victor in his tracks. Fresh snow blanketed the valley below, pristine and glittering. Mountain ridges stretched to the horizon, each range painted in progressively lighter shades of blue and white. The rising sun transformed ordinary rocks and trees into sculptures of light and shadow. "Oh," he said softly, the single syllable containing more genuine wonder than Olivia had heard from him since childhood. "This is why," she told him quietly. "This is what I want to study, to protect, to help others experience. Not just the physical beauty, but the complex systems that create and sustain it." Victor stood in silence for several minutes, absorbing the landscape with the focused attention he usually reserved for financial reports and concert performances. When he finally spoke, his voice carried newfound respect. "I see it now," he said. "Not just scenery, but something essential, something worth devoting your life to understanding." They remained at the overlook until the sun had fully cleared. The eastern peaks, each lost in private thoughts, yet somehow more connected than they had been in years. As they began their descent, Victor matched his steps more confidently to the uneven trail. "I've been thinking about the house in Seattle," he said, continuing the conversation Olivia hadn't realized they were having. "It's too large for just me, especially with you building your life elsewhere. Are you considering moving?" Olivia asked, surprised by this potential upheaval in her father's carefully ordered existence. "Downsizing, perhaps. To a condo downtown, closer to the office." He navigated around an icy patch with careful concentration. "But I was thinking the house itself might serve a better purpose. Its location near the university, the large grounds, the separate carriage house." Olivia waited, sensing there was more to this practical assessment. "What would you think about converting it into a scholarship residence?" Victor continued. "For music students who also pursue environmental studies or conservation work. A place that honors both paths, both passions, like your mother embodied, like you're creating for yourself." The proposal was so unexpected, so perfectly aligned with the integration Olivia had been struggling to achieve, that she stopped. In her tracks. "You'd do that? Create a program that specifically supports dual pursuits?" Victor smiled, a genuine expression rarely seen in recent years. "The Helen Chen Memorial Scholarship House, supporting young artists who also champion the natural world. It feels right, doesn't it? A way to honor what she valued most, beauty in all its forms, and the courage to pursue it authentically." Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes, not of sadness but of profound recognition. This was her father's way of saying that he not only accepted her choices but found value in them, enough to restructure his own life and resources around supporting similar journeys for others. "It's perfect," she said simply. "Mom would love it." They continued down the mountain as morning light filled the valley, their footprints marking the shared path through untouched snow. Behind them stood the majestic peaks, witnesses to this moment of reconnection. Ahead lay the small town where Olivia had found her voice, her purpose, her authentic self. Later that day, as they sat with Eva in the station cafe watching Victor's return train approach, Olivia felt a sense of completion that had nothing to do with perfection and everything to do with integration. The jagged pieces of her life, family and independence, music and science, past and future, were not magically fused into seamless unity. But they existed now in creative tension rather than destructive opposition. "Will you be all right?" Victor asked as boarding was announced, his concern genuine but no longer controlling. With your studies, your work, everything you're taking on? Olivia smiled, recognizing the parental worry beneath the question. More than all right, she assured him. I'm exactly where I need to be, doing exactly what feels true to me. That's the greatest security anyone can have. Ava, who had maintained a supportive but unobtrusive presence throughout the visit, added her own perspective. Your daughter has remarkable strength, Mr. Chen, and equally remarkable wisdom in knowing when to use that strength and when to accept support from others. Victor nodded, acknowledging both the compliment to Olivia and the gentle reminder that independence didn't mean isolation. Take care of each other, he said simply, including Eva in the farewell. As the train pulled away from Cascade Falls Station, carrying her father back to the city that had once been her only home, Olivia felt no doubt or regret, only gratitude for the unexpected journey that had brought her to this moment of clarity and purpose. Ready for your afternoon class? Ava asked as they walked back through town, the mountains standing sentinel against the winter sky. Ready, Olivia confirmed, her step light despite the newly fallen snow. The path ahead, with its challenges and uncertainties, its opportunities and connections, was no longer something to fear or resist. It was simply the next movement in a composition of her own making, played with confidence, creativity, and the courage to follow her own inner music. The midnight train whistle echoed across the valley, its sound no longer lonely but reassuring. A reminder of connections maintained, journeys continuing, and the countless possibilities that awaited those brave enough to step off the expected path and discover their own destination. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.